I'm fed up already. Why do I have to take care of that old man? I'm going to divorce him, so that old man who needs care is a stranger to me now. That daughter is also a stranger. I'll take this house. Hey, calling someone a stranger is rude. The two sisters and I, who were worried about elderly father's sudden remarriage, our bad feeling was right on the mark. My name is Heather. I'm a 39-year-old housewife. I have two older sisters, 43-year-old Emily and 45-year-old Rachel. Rachel moved to another state because of her marriage, but the three of us sisters get along very well. We used to fight a lot when we were younger, but now that we're this age, that's stopped. Just above all, we were able to unite and stand together, so you could say our bond has grown even stronger. That unity was necessary for taking care of our father. It's been 3 years since our mother passed away due to an illness. Initially, our father, who's quite depressed and couldn't do anything for himself, became our responsibility. As a result, I, living nearby, along with Emily and Rachel from afar, began to visit our family home frequently. At first, we would console our depressed father and help him with housework, but we realized that wouldn't do. So the three of us talked it over. We taught our father how to do household chores, training him thoroughly so he could live independently. He was managing fairly well when an incident occurred. Our father hurt his leg. A tech now in his 70s, he quickly ended up in a wheelchair. Now, I visit him for caregiving using local government services. One day, when I went to my family home as usual, I saw unfamiliar shoes at the entrance. Looking at those clearly female shoes, I tilted my head. But was today the day the caregiver was coming? He's thinking I might have misunderstood. I entered the house to find a strange woman happily chatting with my father, seated in a chair. This is Joyce. She volunteers at the senior center. She reminds me a bit of your late mother, who lost her gentle aura, my father said. But I tilted my head at those words. My late mother was a gentle and slightly absent-minded woman. That the woman in front of me did not look that way. She was 58 years old. She had lived alone all her life. She looked like a very strong woman. Yet I never found the right person, so I've always been single, she said, smiling, but her eyes weren't laughing. I felt like I saw a shrewd glint in her eyes, because she was always there when I went to my family home. Oh, Joyce is a wonderful woman, my father would say, his eyes sparkling. His legs were still weak, but he could walk with a cane. Is this the power of love? That in itself was fine, but the other person was not good. Ike Joyce seemed like a good person, at least in front of my father. She would devote herself to taking care of my father, even though she was a stranger. But once she was away from my father, she revealed her true nature. One day, as I was bringing a meal, as usual, she said, "What's this?" "It looks bad." Fine. Seeing the food I'd made tossed into the trash, I involuntarily raised my voice. But Joyce sneered at me and said, "It's because you give him such bad food that he never gets better." Oh, well, you see, my father, who had heard the commotion, came hobbling over with his cane just as I was about to complain.
"What's going on?" Heather yelled at me. The moment Joyce recognized my father, her attitude changed completely.
It's like she has a split personality. It's because you're throwing away the food I made for Dad, isn't it? That's awful, Heather. You were the one who threw away the food I made. What? Hey, Heather, what are you doing to Joyce? Love might have revitalized him, but love is blind, and my father is completely fooled by Joyce. No matter what I say, he fully believes in Joyce. That's a real problem. When I called my oldest sister, Rachel, she said that with a sigh. It's more than a problem. That's completely smitten. Old age love. That can be quite tough. What do you think we should do? Maybe we should just let them be. I thought that was irresponsible, but it seems that my father has become more stubborn as he's gotten older. If we oppose them outright, he'll just become more obstinate. So my sister and I decided it's best to let them do as they please. Even though we're letting them do as they please, we still worry, so we visit every few days to check on them, but Joyce is always there. And the number of times I've been turned away with, "He's sleeping now, please go home," has increased. Eventually, I wasn't allowed to see my father at all. There's a limit to letting them be. My elderly father doesn't have a cell phone. People, we can only contact him by visiting or calling the home phone. But now we can't visit and the phone isn't answered. Worried about not being able to see my father, I angrily said, "I'm his daughter. Why won't you let me see my father?" That was answered with, "Because he says he doesn't want to see you." And the door was shut in my face. We consulted with the home care facility, and it seems that he's still using their services, so he appears to be safe. But I was told he doesn't seem to be doing well lately, and I panicked. Maybe I should force my way into the house. Just as I was thinking this, I got a call from my father, and the three sisters were summoned. But what could it be all of a sudden?
"I've got a bad feeling about this," said my oldest sister.
Emily's bad feeling was proven right.
I'm back in my childhood home, where I hadn't been for a long time, seeing my father again after so long. Seeing the change in our father, we were at a loss for words. "Then," he said, "I'm thinking of remarrying." The house was in a state of disrepair, uncleaned and disheveled. My father, who had been lively since meeting Joyce, was now thin and lacking energy. Who could possibly celebrate his remarriage in such a state? "I object," said Rachel, my oldest sister, as expected. "I object too." Emily nodded in agreement. Me too. I raised my right hand to show my agreement with my sisters.
You only asked permission. I asked you here today to inform you of a decision.
"Wake up, Dad."
"She's not good for you," said Heather. "Your mother was a wonderful woman, but she's gone now."
I'm lonely living alone. Boys feels that loneliness. I won't allow you to speak ill of her. Horse know what my sisters and I said. My father's will was firm.
He seemed to have made up his mind and wasn't going to bend on his decision to remarry. Oh my, what's going on here? That's when it happened.
Joyce appeared, breaking the tense atmosphere with a leisurely voice.
"Oh, Joyce," she said. "Well, my daughters are opposed to our remarriage." "Well, what awful daughters you have," Joyce said, frowning at my father's words, and we were all dumbstruck. Not wanting their father to be happy. "Are they even your daughters?" She said. "Let's ignore them, darling. We're getting married and gonna be happy together, right? Let's forget about them as if they never existed," she said. What did you say? Oh, scary, look at that angry face. It's like a demon. You don't need a daughter like that, do you? When Emily gets angry with a demonic expression, Joyce wears a blatantly frightened face at her theatrically smelly manner. We feel both exasperation and anger, but it seems our father doesn't notice. That's so great. Hey kids, I never thought you were such terrible daughters, he said. Dad, please leave. I'm going to be happy with her. Wait a minute, Dad. Much though I wanted him to change his mind somehow, Joyce blocked my father's way. Look, you're so persistent. If I said leave, then leave. And then she actually threw salt at us. Feeling that this was beyond too much, we left our family home. This is the worst. Both Rachel and Emily are feeling shock and anger. I felt the same. We'll make a point to check on Dad regularly. That sounds good. I'm sorry, but can you do it, Heather? Yeah, leave it to me. This is a task only I, living nearby, can do. I thumped my chest, facing my sisters, who seem apologetic. But in the end, I never got to see my father. It was almost a month since my father's remarriage. One day, as I was heading towards my family home, I was shocked by a presence coming straight at me. Then, Dad. There was my father in a wheelchair. Moreover, he was utterly thin and emaciated, looking like a completely different person. Dad, what's going on? Tears well up in my eyes at his drastic change. My father trembles slightly at my voice and gazes at me weakly. Oh, Heather. No, it's just something. It's not just something. And what's this back? Looking, I see my father holding a small bag. Inside it, there are a few pieces of clothing. But that's it, and there's nothing else. What's this? Joyce gave it to me. What? She told me to take it and leave. What are you talking about? I was surprised and took my father home to rest. My in-laws, who live with me, were astonished but must have felt that something was wrong, so they immediately laid him down in my bed. After confirming this, I told my in-laws please look after Dad for a while and immediately left the house. Of course, I was headed for my family home. As I opened the front door and entered, there stood Joyce, who would become my mother-in-law, right in front of me. That's what's going on here. You threw out my father? What a surprise. Strangers shouldn't just walk into someone else's. Stranger, I am the daughter of this house's owner, my father. You're a stranger now? Without being flustered by my anger, Joyce said, why should I take care of an old man? That's just unthinkable. I'm divorcing him, so that old man who needs care is a stranger now. What? And while we're at it, you ugly daughter are a stranger too. I'll take this house. Take this house. Ugly has nothing to do with it. And what about his house? Be considering the care I've been forced to give. It's only fair, isn't it? Don't care. You've only been remarried for 1 month. You plan on taking this house for such short-term care. Thus, 1 month or 1 day, care is care. I'm fed up. But with that, Joyce let out a deep sigh. Okay, if you understand, please leave, said the stranger. He yelled, and I was pushed out by Joyce with incredible force. Finally, she brought out the salt again, so I hurriedly fled from my childhood home. The front door slammed shut behind me. Oh, I can't believe this. I thought when I got home. My father was asleep. He seems quite tired. It seems he hasn't been eating properly, so he devoured the quick porridge I prepared. Saying this, my mother-in-law looked at my father with concern. Probably that Joyce's or whatever didn't even feed him properly. Really, that's when I called the home care facility. It seemed Joyce had unilaterally refused home care. He heard about the remarriage and that the daughters agreed. The puzzle-booking caregiver said, blaming her would be harsh, wouldn't it? After confirming the facts, I called my 2 sisters. I can't forgive her. We won't forgive her. It's still palms in section. Shall we do it? I asked. My sisters both answered my question with, let's do it. So, let's do it, I decided. Thinks what Joyce is doing is illegal, and she needs to learn a hard lesson. So, what should we do? I pondered. This is what we'll do. I'm full. Brutality, my 2 sisters, and they passed through the door of our childhood home. Foolishly, the locks hadn't been changed yet. When the 3 of us opened the front door and entered the house, Joyce, of course, was there to meet us. What? You can't just walk in here, Joyce exclaimed. What are you talking about? The name hasn't been changed yet, has it? Then this house still belongs to her father. Is there a problem if his daughters come in as they please? Then we're coming in, I declared, ignoring the bewildered Joyce. We entered the house. Wow, it's a mess, I observed. Open screens and mountains of trash all over the floor. Patine 4 ached to see our cherished home so ruined. And, all right, I said. Shall we do it? I asked, nodding to my sister, who had rolled up her sleeves. I put on an apron, and then we started cleaning, all at once. What? Why? What are you doing? Joyce asked, bewildered. As you can see, we're cleaning, I replied. So is that it? I asked, smiling. Well, fine. Just make sure to clean it up nicely. What's with that attitude? But if you say it's okay, we'll do as we please. And we continued to work. We threw away scattered trash, finished wiping down surfaces, and then turned our attention to the refrigerator. What are you going to do at the fridge? We'll do this. Please take care of it. In front of the bewildered Joyce, my eldest sister called. Then the waiting staff came in. Okay, please dispose of it. Understood. The energetic male staff carried out the fridge. Wait. Ignoring the panicked Joyce, my second sister said, next, this, and pointed to the TV, microwave, sofa, table, and other appliances and furniture. What are you doing? And all of this belongs to us, as we bought them for our father. So we will recover and dispose of everything, Joyce, flustered, replied. What? I didn't hear anything about that. You don't need to be told. You're a stranger after all.
Yes, all of the furniture and appliances in this house were presents from us to our parents. After we started working as adults, we bought and presented them to our parents one by one as a way to repay their kindness. They were ruthlessly taken out. Heather, with a worried look, said, "Wait a minute, I'll be in trouble without appliances and furniture, you know."
If you need it, why don't you buy it yourself? Stranger, Joyce, at a loss for words, turned pale.
What the heck have you guys done? Afterward, they continued to clean up the house until finally there was nothing left inside. In a small box placed in a corner were Joyce's personal belongings. Apparently, her possessions hadn't increased much in just a few months. "There's nothing here," Joyce said, facing the stark reality of the empty family home. "Ain't increased much in just a few months." "There's nothing here," Joyce said, facing the stark reality of the empty family home.
Emily oddly offered Joyce a sandwich. Without waiting for a response, Emily shoved it into Joyce's mouth. Joyce, forcibly fed, had her eyes wide open. Emily, watching with satisfaction, suddenly slapped her hand as if remembering something. "Oh, my mistake. I forgot to put salt on the sandwich. How tasteless of me. Silly me." At that, she took out a bag of salt. Upon opening it, she said to Joyce, "Here's the salt," and threw it all over her. "Yikes! Ay, mighty boy! The salty?" Joyce exclaimed. "What are you doing? Don't be like that. Enjoy the salt with the sandwich. Fetch this much salt. Who needs it?" Esty and my sisters looked at her coldly, remembering how she once mercilessly salted our food, even though she disliked it herself. Even Joyce was taken aback by our chilly atmosphere. "What's with you?" "Well, it feels like a scam to me. You see, we've been thinking that what you did might be a scam, so we consulted the appropriate authorities." What? As from being pelted with salt to a surprising salty response. Joyce was frozen by my sister's words. "What authorities?" "Oh, various ones. People you consult about fraud." "What? You really think this is a legitimate marriage? Forcing our father out of the house without feeding him properly and then occupying it. You think this is normal? Well, you thought we'd just stay quiet. Don't take us lightly, will you?" Speak. That's the one whose voice suddenly turned icy, was the eldest sister, Rachel. Usually Emily is the scary one, but when Rachel gets angry, she's terrifying. But with Rachel's cold glare, Joyce froze like she had been struck. Looking down on her, Rachel said, "Don't think you'll get off easy. We'll definitely corner you." I won't bow down to you," Joyce shouted back, though her legs were shaking.
"I'm your father's wife, after all."
"Regardless of the duration, I'll definitely get this house." "Oh, that's not right. But her employers, the one to challenge Joyce's declaration to take over the house, was Emily." "What?
You're mistaken because you're Dad's wife.
What?"
But to her, Emily slowly said, "It seems Dad didn't file the marriage certificate with you."
"What? You still have your maiden name, Joyce Miller."
"And so it has to be."
Maybe Dad's getting a little senile. He prepared the paperwork, but it seems he didn't submit it. If you don't believe it, why don't you check? That was the final blow. Joyce collapsed to her knees at my sister's words. She's angry. Afterward, with the help of appropriate consultation with agencies and lawyers, it was concluded that Joyce's actions amounted to fraud. Moreover, it turned out that Joyce had been married several times, conning her partners out of money and property before divorcing them. Most of the victims were elderly, and she was targeting those with diminished judgment in her despicable crimes. It's in Dad's case, our presence as daughters seemed to have hindered her, so his life was not endangered, but it was still a dangerous situation for him. We were relieved that the worst did not happen. Joyce was arrested when numerous past crimes came to light. Currently, she was wailing at the moment of her arrest, but it was a case of you reap what you sow or she got what was coming to her. She should regret it as much as she can. My father has moved into a nursing home. It's because there were various symptoms that seemed like dementia, such as forgetting to submit the marriage certificate. Luckily, we didn't have to wait long, and there happened to be an opening in a good facility. I hope he can spend the rest of his life in peace. With that wish, we 3 sisters, Heather, Rachel, and Emily, watch our sleeping father. By his bedside, there's a picture of our smiling mother.